read people, so they look at tests like that, and in absence of being able to read person. I like doing both if I have the option to. I also think that there's like a degree of this where, if we're just being honest, sometimes like when you're working with athletes, they're fucking the worst at reporting symptoms, or if they're feeling shitty. So you kind of just need to put something in front of them that's something to do and test, almost like an exercise, that will get them to like think about things and go internal and get reconnected with themselves. Like, I almost think that's the bigger value than it necessarily telling you exactly one thing. To the final piece of this is that, yes, I will look at stuff like that. All of these parts I've discussed when I'm sort of like designing a training program for someone, whether it's like tying in numbers or intensity, duration, how I coach them, right? The other part of that's like some people are very visual, and this is again more Mike stuff. Some people are very visual learners. Some people are more auditory. Some people are more kinesthetic, like felt. Auditory digital. I was like, so asking, trying to like see what people respond to the best, and then meeting them at that level can help a lot too.
So
that's like some NLP type stuff.
Okay. Talking about, knowing how to read someone and getting the feedback that they're giving you or even your body's giving you, one thing I've heard you talk on, and I just wanted to kind of go into detail a little bit about the book, The Body Keeps a Score, and how you use that in your coaching and what you've gotten from that.
Yeah, my friend Ryan actually makes everyone read that book, who he works with. That book just really opened my eyes to stuff that I'd known already. It just was it's not the best thing in the world. What it is, though, is it's a really easily digestible way to see that your thoughts and emotions and the physical body and physiology, they're sort of a feedback loop. Not that sort of, they are. And so a lot of how you treat your body is going to definitely affect your quality of life. And a lot of what might have happened to you in the past, or you're currently dealing or not dealing with, is almost always going to have some sort of consequence on your health. The simplest thing I like to say is, if you're stressed and you have really stiff traps and maybe a lot of aches and pains in your body, like when you get stressed like that, there you go. There's a really basic version of it for anyone who doesn't really believe in this stuff. And then you have more extreme cases of trauma where some people from where I'm actually online and from where I'm from back home, they'll like actually shame fat people or people who like don't like working out and stuff. And while at the same time I work with high level professional athletes, a lot of these people they just don't know what it's like to have such an anxious state in your body where you deplete the fuck out of your brain chemicals to the point to where you might not have enough adrenals left to like fuel yourself. You might not have like proper cortisol production. You might not have the right amount of dopamine to be able to like actually do something, a goal off on the horizon, in order to have a goal off on the horizon and then do the requisite day-to-day things like working out and dieting in order to get there, and I mean, dopamine is associated with like moving or going somewhere for a reward, so I just think that a lot of these people, boy, I really forgot where I was going with that. I just think that a lot of times, like, someone like that might just need to rest and relax for a while and replenish a lot of this stuff. Work in, as you put it, eat right, sleep, do a lot of the work, support the adaptive process, inner work, support the adaptive processes of the body, and then do just whatever they can basically for fitness. You know what I mean? I also, because I used to be one of them, I have like a big time, I'm going to hate on some of these fitness types a little bit. I just have a big time, like, not suspicion. I mean, you kind of just see it for what it is. A lot of times people in that bodybuilding or fitness, like, get as big at all costs shape, or sometimes it's get as, run as many miles as you can and zone out at all cost state. A lot of it comes just from, like, feeling like you need to do that shit in order to belong. I think the amount of people who do that stuff because they love it is, they're there. It's definitely the minority, though. It's, a lot of those guys almost always come with some sort of like deep-seated inferiority complex they haven't really dealt with, you know? I mean, and this is coming from someone who still thinks it's totally okay to just lift weights for vanity. You know, I do, and function as well. But yeah.
Well, yeah, and you see.
Sorry, dude, I completely forgot what the fuck you asked me.
That's how we roll here at Airey Bros. It's funny you talk about that. Run more miles or lift more weights. You see it a lot in ultra marathoning, and even to a certain respect within the CrossFit community, where you have addicts, recovering addicts or people that are cleaning themselves up, where they trade one addiction for the other, and they go overboard on the running side or the fitness side, and they justify it because it's healthy, but it gets to a certain point where too much of anything is unhealthy. You know what I mean? Whether it's cheeseburgers, donuts, heroin, cocaine, working out, running, but then you also have these people that are now, because they quote unquote turned their life around, are now at the top of the mountain screaming, well, look at me do this, look at what I did. And sometimes it can be frustrating because, you see these people and they've written a book or whatever it may be. And sometimes it's hard for people to relate to someone like us where we've been doing this our whole lives. And it's like, people are like, well, you've done this your whole life. So I'm trying to make this change so I can relate to this person. It's like, well, you should be able to relate to me or let me lead you to where you need to go, because I have been living this way my whole life.
Yeah. I think that I agree with you, especially in a logical left brain sense. I also think that sometimes people they need to connect with someone and identify with them in order to have that happen. So you might have the best information in the world. Everyone, yes, should be able to relate to everyone, at least at a core level, at least enough to listen to them. At the same time, I know that that's not necessarily the world that we live in. A lot of people really need that emotional connection in order to go someplace else, and that's something that I've learned, still learning, It's something that you kind of, even if you can lose track of, like I did. So I think that with respect to the addicts, like a lot of times you'll see them do well in things like CrossFit, professional athletics, or you'll see a lot of people who are high-level athletes become addicts after, like Dennis Rodman, for example.
Lawrence Taylor.
And BJ Penn.
Yeah, BJ Penn, that's a sad one. Like Lawrence Taylor, too, yeah. Remember when he broke Joe Theismann's leg on coke?
Yep.
Oh, man.
Lawrence Taylor used to be in on every play, man. That guy was legit.
Yeah, now we know why.
Now we know why, yeah. The adrenals of a superhero.
Yeah.
So a lot of times that same sort of like reward-based mentality that makes an athlete great can also really like fuck up someone's personal life, especially if they don't have an outlet for it. I think it's really important to have an outlet, and I think that sports is one of the most beautiful things you can do for that on a productivity level. Your work, day in and day out, helping other people. At the same time, you kind of need that balance, because if everything you do in your life, moving, I can't sit still, all that is about taking away the feelings, that's not good. It has to be an and situation, I also think, like, if you're ignoring half of your feelings, like if you're ignoring half of it, and women are actually better at men are better at just sort of being dissociated in general. Women are actually better at ignoring half of their feelings if they like need to move forward with something in life, even if it's like a short-sighted temporary thing. No, not short-sighted, but a temporary thing that like they just need to kind of experience or do temporarily, or in some cases long-term as well. With addicts, though, what you really see is a lot of people who just sort of get off the hard drug or whatever it was, and then they still have that addictive behavior present. And that's why I think the 12-step program's been great for a lot of people. Helped way more people than I've ever helped.
A lot of coffee and nicotine at those meetings, though.
Fuck yeah, man. Like, yeah, exactly. Every one of those meetings is full of sugary-ass donuts, fucking gas station coffee, and they're just okay, yeah, we can chain smoke cigarettes outside. You know what I'm saying? Like that, like, isn't that kind of just like, it's way better than what they were doing, and they need to be applauded for the progress. And at the same time, if you're the coach, you can't really be like, okay, you need to lose 100 pounds and you've lost 20 of them, you know, or you've lost 80, you know. It's like, celebrate it, and then also, like, at least do what you can to lead the horse to water a little bit more. I also think that, and this is something I've long believed, especially once I learned about NLP, and I know, you know, NLP practitioners will echo me on this. You don't want to create a victim mentality out of a situation, and the worst thing you can do is have these people go, oh, hey, I'm Mark, and I'm an addict. It's like, okay, you're giving this dude an out to be able to be an addict for life. You're subconsciously creating an identity where it's a part where he thinks he's an addict, you know? It's like people who lose themselves in certain situations, right? They, like, even if it's the new situation is a good situation and it's fixable, when they make that hard, well, when they see the situation presented again, they make that hard left turn in order to get out of it. And that's an example of a part too, just to use something outside of the addiction realm. So parts are they're actually kind of easy to undo if you just hear the right thing or talk to the right people. It's all about how you associate things, right? Like if you go to a place where you had a lot of negative stuff happen, that's going to feel negative for a little bit. Has nothing to do with the place itself anymore, though. And you actually can fix that in a really short amount of time if you just, you know, lean into it a little bit. What was I going to say about the addicts? I had one more point. There's definitely a biological component to it, just to throw that out there. Potentially some things with like a certain set of genes, like the DRD4 gene being one of them, certain stuff in the gut. I actually used to work for a detox center, and a friend of mine and I, former partner of mine and I at the time, were helping implement health nutrition programs and looking at the genetics of certain people in the addiction community to see like what they had in common. But yeah, basically in a nutshell, man, I just think that community leads people like part of the way and most of the way. I just think that like really trying to help them deal with their stuff when you can and when they're willing and if they want to is probably the best way to handle that kind of thing, you know?
We've talked about the right and left brain a lot today, and I had heard you talk on Bledsoe's podcast about the Soviets hiring artists and writers to kind of help and train their athletes, and I heard you say that you had a writing background, and something like that kind of spoke to me a couple years back when I found someone like Paul Chek, who was all about the athletic side of things, but bringing holistic into it. Kind of really spoke to me because as an athlete, I've always kind of felt that spiritual side, but it's not really, you know, unless you're on a football team and they're saying a prayer and you know, it's kind of like that. And not to bash anyone who does that, but to me that's always been corny. But to kind of connect the two, right? To connect the body and the spirit, that seems like to be a space that you're in. And as I said before, you're a writer. So just go into how you kind of connect the two.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, if I said that I had all the answers for this or anyone's problems, I'd be a bullshitter. I mean, a lot of what I do is help make people aware and then just have the conversations with them that almost get to help them to answer their own questions for themselves is really the best way I think I could be of service to someone. And yeah, there are definitely left brain ways I support that through nutrition, certain supplementation, and then, you know, getting them back in their body with moving, or again, if it's a pro athlete, you know, we'll breach some of that stuff. And at the same time, they're on a specific, like we talked about before the show came on, you know, like a specific strength and conditioning regimen, you know, maybe some of that, you know, the speed of sport, you know, Marinovich kind of work blended with some of my own stuff, blended with some new fit stuff. So the way I do it is sort of, I call it holistic health or functional medicine, quote unquote, meets athletic performance. And I really think that kind of everybody is like an athlete at some level. And I also think that, you know, everybody's been through some type of shit or has some sort of like human condition hole that we all have, like walking around. I think it's important to just be there for people and also help people, make people aware of their own shit where you see it. And a lot of it's just telling the truth, dude. Like I've lost clients or turned them off because I've just sort of been like, okay, well, you do realize you're not doing this or you are doing this.